Boston panel. We wanted to bring this group together to pull back the curtain and make the process of opening a storefront transparent, accessible, and achievable. To get us started, I want to introduce an invaluable partner to our business community, Donald Wright, the Interim Chief of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion for the City of Boston, who has a 2-decade-long and 2-decade-strong background in private and public sector real estate. And that isn't easily summed up, but my best effort is Donald always knows who to put people, places, and spaces together. How to put people, places, and spaces together. Donald, thank you for being a great partner. Please join me in welcoming today's panel and guests.
Thanks, Mike. Before I dive into the data, we need to recognize the incredible leadership that brought us all here today. Let's take a quick moment to acknowledge the work of Mike Nichols and the entire Downtown Business Alliance. Putting together an event like this and doing the daily heavy lifting work, transforming vacant spaces, championing our creative economy, and actively helping small businesses turn the key on new storefronts takes immense dedication. Mike and the Alliance are the ultimate champions for this neighborhood, and we are so lucky to have their vision guiding downtown Boston's new chapter. Thank you, Mike, and thank you to the Now, if you want to know exactly where the neighborhood is going, just don't look for cranes in the sky, you gotta look at the data on the ground. When people talk about the future of urban economies, they often speak, in terms of recovery. But this is happening right now, and downtown isn't recovery. It is a fundamental evolution. The numbers from the past year prove it, and the trends we are seeing right now are rewriting the playbook for brick and mortar success. Let's look at the basics. Through the end of last year, downtown did something no other commercial submarket in the region could pull off. It posted consecutive declines in office vacancies. We've closed out the year with office vacancies dropping significantly to about 25.2%. Is that right? I'm kind of close. All right, good. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But we want to ask why. Because over 4 million square feet of active leasing took place, heavily driven by the massive flight to quality. Top-tier spaces are filling up the finance, legal, and surging wave of advanced AI and tech firms. Commuters are returning with subway ridership at our core downtown station swelling to about 4.5 million riders in a single quarter, with the major global brands looking at storefronts that have sat vacant for nearly for 20 years and say, we need to be there. That is a massive vote of confidence. Pedestrian traffic is climbing, routinely hiking 3 million monthly visits to our downtown core. So what does that mean for businesses like yours? It means that the 9 to 5, commuter-only downtown is officially dead. And we are replacing it infinitely better. The single biggest trend defining our landscape is the golden age of office to residential conversions, which I'm sure many of you heard about. Under Mayor Wu's conversion program, we have nearly 30 buildings and 1.5 million square feet on Washington Street. Hundreds of units are coming online. You aren't just opening up a shop for office workers anymore. You're opening up a shop for 18 to 24 hours, 7-day-a-week residential neighborhoods with over $3 billion in localized buying power. So this is the area which you'll be coming in. Furthermore, the newly enacted planned downtown zoning updates mean that the city has finally cut the red tape, opening a business, adapting the whole building, and navigating land use is faster and less bureaucratic than it had been in generations. Combine that with the city's aggressive push into a late-night experiential economy with food trucks to public art block activations, and you have a district designed to keep people here, spending money long after shutdown. So the data doesn't lie. Downtown Boston is younger, more residential, more accessible, and more economically diverse than it ever has been. That is through the framework built by Mike and the DBA and the Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion. The market isn't just ready for your storefronts, it was intentionally designed to ensure its success. Thank you, and let's build the future of Boston together.
That's awesome. Thank you, Donald. And you know he's a busy guy because he's a two-cell phone guy, so you can tell. You always know somebody's busy that way. Well, before turning our session over to this incredible panel, I want to establish a foundation for what we mean when we talk about opening a business downtown today. At the Alliance, we steward a very specific high-velocity footprint, downtown crossing and the financial district, along with parts of Government Center and the theater district. This is the literal heart of our city. Our mission is to serve as your concierge, a resource that can point you in the right direction at each step of your journey, before and after opening your business in downtown. And we do it for free. Downtown gives an entrepreneur built-in advantages not present anywhere else in our city or region. Over 100,000 daily pedestrians walking past your storefront windows. The most transit-accessible hub in the Commonwealth at the convergence of all 4 subway lines, plus North and South Station on either side, with the Silver Line and the MBTA bus system also passing through. The first network of theaters, museums, colleges, restaurants, retailers, hotels, and historic sites, all steps from one another. Proximity to the rest of the city, a central location for accessing Back Bay and Beacon Hill, the Seaport in South Boston, the North End, the South End, Chinatown, and so much more. Boston's historic mid-market shopping district, catering to a large and racially and socioeconomically diverse customer base that's present here 7 days a week. World-class parks and open spaces with Boston Common, the Public Garden, the Rose Kennedy Greenway, and Post Office Square Park encircling this neighborhood, with Boston Harbor and City Hall Plaza also just steps away. And finally, the largest number of jobs located in a single place anywhere in New England, a predictable and increasingly present customer base. The data shows our area is driving Boston's post-pandemic repositioning and an incredible commercial momentum not found in every city everywhere. And we are here to show it to you and how you could plug your business directly into that new energy. So to show you exactly how to navigate that process, we brought together several key voices in the momentum we feel every day. Let's start by introducing them and demystifying exactly what roles they could play in welcoming your business downtown. So before we jump in, I just love a quick show of hands. So how many of you either are business owners or are thinking about opening a new business? Wow, awesome. How many of you are in the broad ecosystem of those who help people open small businesses in our city? Thank you for that work. I know many of you are doing that great work. And how many of you are already present in part of the amazing downtown ecosystem? Many of us here already today. Great, thank you. I want to start first with some foundations of the work that we'll be talking about here today. So I want to start with you, Judy. Judy Pizzo is a commercial real estate broker working as principal broker and founder at the OCAP Group. She was recently named to the Boston Business Journal's 40 Under 40 for movers and shakers in our area. For an entrepreneur staring at a vacant storefront or commercial real estate listing online, that process can feel like a black box. Could you start by sharing a little bit about what you do as a tenants broker and why it's important that be one of the first calls an entrepreneur could make?
Okay, can I touch this?
I don't know.
Can everyone hear me?
You guys hear okay?
Okay.
All right.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Judy Pizzo, yes, principal broker of the OCAP Group. And so as a tenant rep broker, I am your advocate. I am the one that helps you with, identifying a space and ensuring that it's, typically when we find spaces, I think entrepreneurs, we find a listing and we think that's the deal, or we have the price and this is how much it's going to cost. I help with demystifying that, with helping you actually understand what it's going to take to open up your business, how much time you may need for a build out, how much time you may need for free rent, things of that sort. And so I work as a tenant broker. I also work as a landlord broker as well, and investment sales. So
Thank you. Now let's go to Namran. Now you manage a portfolio of residential, retail, and office properties in downtown Boston and beyond as the partner and head of development for the Hudson Group. This includes your still relatively recent, I think, to us, acquisition, resuscitation of 399-401 Washington Street in downtown Crossing, now home to Uniqlo. Landlords can sometimes feel intimidating to a first-time business owner. Would you please tell us a little bit about your philosophy as a property owner, what it means when you say that what you look for, that you're open to a shared success in creative partnerships with a small business?
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. No, Ron, can you all hear me as well? All good? The Hudson Group. And as Michael mentioned, our kind of entry into downtown Boston, or into sort of the DBA district specifically, was the person of Washington Street, the former Barnes & Noble building. We just celebrated Uniqlo's opening in that store, so not exactly a small business, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum. So we're used to playing sort of in that side of the world, but honestly, my career really started working with small businesses like many in this room, in the Leather District, Chinatown, air submarkets, kind of South Station. And I guess to your question, I mean, a lot of what we do is we typically don't buy just standalone retail. So retail, in a lot of ways, for us is a way to sort of amenitize a residential building or to sort of merchandise a street where we're investing in other ways. So that doesn't mean we can give away retail real estate, but a lot of we're like the small landlord side of my work is really more thinking about how to activate spaces. Is the personality and sort of the character of the tenant the right mix on the street, on the block, in the building? Now, obviously, with Uniqlo, that's a different consideration. I mean, that actually checked all those boxes, but that was an acquisition, that was a speculative buy, and we sort of had we had a sort of a lead into potentially attracting Uniqlo. So that, again, is not a small business, but what's great about, I think, downtown in general is you do have a really healthy mix of anchor tenants like the Uniqlos of the world, right? Gap, Old Navy, and then you have kind of the independents kind of trickle throughout as well. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's a bit of just kind of how we view the world, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear to those of us doing the work here in downtown every day that it is that mix of the large, national, recognizable brands coupled with the amazing cadre of small businesses that are here that feed off one another. I don't think anybody would come here just for one or the other. Certainly not just for our large big box retailers. So it's a really great mix. Now with me, Alicia Porcena, who may well be the North Star in all of this. Alicia serves as the Director of Small Business for the City of Boston, overseeing services and programming that supports Boston's vibrant ecosystem of 19,000 small businesses, many of which are located here in downtown. Appropriately, she was also recently named to the BBJ's 40 Under 40 list. Alicia, when entrepreneurs think of government, they often think of regulations and red tape, but your office is explicitly built to do the opposite, to cut through it all in support of small businesses. Can you give an overview of what you and your team does? What are the actual services and programs that the city offers to help someone successfully plant their flag in a commercial core like downtown?
So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mike. My name is Alicia Porcena. I also want to just recognize I have some members of my team here today who can just raise your hand. So they are here in full force. So if you have any questions, feel free to track them down after today. They can definitely give you more guidance and support. So as Mike said, our office is here to help businesses start, grow, and build in Boston. And one of the ways we do that is with our programming and support. We want to make sure that businesses don't feel alone in the process. I think that sometimes as a business owner, you can feel alone in the journey. We want to create a place where businesses can thrive in an ecosystem that is friendly to small businesses. So we have a variety of programs and support. We have technical assistance. We have a storefront improvement program. We work with our main streets that support our local neighborhoods. We have kind of a very small neighborhood loan program, and then we also do a variety of kind of work with building the capacity, and that's all under the framework of building the capacity of small businesses.
Awesome. Super helpful, thank you. And finally, I'm delighted to introduce Salome Kopash, who is living proof of this entire ecosystem in action. Salome, you're a former fashion model in Paris. I'm surprised it says former here. Maybe it's because you're not in Paris anymore. Who trained as a fashion designer and hat maker in Paris, Milan, and New York before finding your way to Boston, where you launched Elor Atelier, a handcrafted hat studio just a block or two from where we gathered here in downtown Crossing. Since joining us downtown over the last year, your business has absolutely skyrocketed, drawing in locals, visitors, and even some major celebrities and TD Garden headliners. Tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey and what it's been like to watch your brand develop since planting your flag in downtown.
Hi, my name is Salome. First, I want to thank the city of Austin, downtown Islands, and Hyatt for allowing business like mine to find home here in downtown. We wouldn't be able to be here without that support. Previous that, I was looking for space already for almost a year. I was looking on the first street and the other. Like, it's just the price and also the lease, like 5-year lease, and it was really, for me, what was making it difficult for me to have space. And then when I had the grant, and I started looking, and I met you guys, and you made me find the space. Myself, I wouldn't be able to work in that space in downtown. And I remember having this talk with you guys, like, okay, downtown, this is what we envision downtown to become. And I bought into the vision. I'm happy that I did, because now that I'm looking, the support that I have coming here downtown, was just a game changer for my brand to be here. And I also think that I found the right place where my customer are actually, which on my journey of looking, that's why you, as an entrepreneur, you start to look at, you think that this is a good place, but and then actually when I found the IAT and my customer are right there. So in the beginning I was kind of like, oh, it's not a storefront. So I want a storefront, but now actually I just think, because I have a lot of the people working through the IAT, the customer, they actually intentional. So when they come, I am there by myself. They're not at a shop, it's only me. And when they come inside, they really come because they want to connect with the brand. Or when we also have an amazing article about the buildouts. And so when people come to the brand, they really come because they want to come to have something special. And we also, we have a very specific niche. We have like a tailoring for hats. We do custom, we tell story around that with the people. We bring our customer to create that piece with us. And it's very unique, so it's very important for us to bring people inside and see what's going on. Hat making is a dying art, so we want to bring people. Most of the people never bring to hat makers, see how it's made. It's a slow fashion. It's very difficult business, very difficult. But by having the grant, by having Boston Alliance, or the city of Boston, the Hyatt has helped me so much, and all of that has helped make this dream really come true. If I was by myself on the person, it would never happen for me for sure. So yeah.
I want to elevate a couple of the things that Salome said before going back to Judy, which I think will be a natural transition. There's a perception we hear a lot at the Downtown Boston Alliance that I don't know if my customer's downtown, or I don't know if I can afford it, or I don't know where the right place to go downtown is. We had all of those conversations with you, right, Salome, to find the perfect place. And so those that haven't been to Salome's store, as she mentioned, it's tucked inside the Hyatt Hotel. You don't see a window from the street. It's not a traditional storefront, but it worked for your business. It worked amazingly, I think, for your business.
Absolutely, it works pretty good. Because again, the people who come is really intentional. They take the time to come. They want to discover the brand. And also something different, like 6 months ago when I moved downtown, and today it's changing. And I feel good to be part of the change. You can see the changing downtown. We took that street today. I remember like a few months ago it was hard to be in the street, and now you can see the changes happening. I think there's an inclusivity. It's new business like mine. They're very unique. I think that the city is giving us a chance to have that kind of unique story here in the city.
Great. So I mean, what I heard is seek out the resources that are available, seek out the city, seek out a group like DDA to help. I heard flexible lease types, right? So she talked about how she was looking elsewhere and it was a much more rigid lease style, where I think based on the experience that we have and working with the city and approaching the landlords here, we're able to try and suggest more flexible lease options. And so I believe, Salome, you end up on a year-to-year lease that gives you some flexibility, but that was what gave you comfort at the time that you were at the beginning of your journey. And so flexible lease types is yet another important thing. And then finding your customer. And so I think that's the natural transition back to Judy. When a small business owner comes to you wanting to capture that specific downtown Boston or financial district customer, trying to imagine where they are and the fit for their business, how do you help them navigate that? How do you counsel a small business owner on finding the perfect place for them?
Well, I think downtown is very unique in the sense of just because it's high foot traffic doesn't mean it's a one-size-fits-all foot traffic kind of thing. Because you have offices, you have tourists, students, hotels, businesses, and now we're transitioning to more of the residential side of things. And so I think it's just more of understanding your business and what kind of, like, what are you servicing to your clients. To your point, you're in a hotel, so I'm assuming having, different people coming in and, international at that, right? They understand the nature of your business. Just because, if you're a grab and go, it might serve you to be more of a daytime, from Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, et cetera, especially with the mandate of offices coming back. Or if you are a smaller boutique, perhaps you're more in need of building your credibility through your visibility, right? Because if you're a boutique style business, you want to ensure that you're increasing your visibility by adding credibility and teaming up with the Downtown Business Alliance to be able to help you with those resources in the city of Boston. And so I think it's just really understanding who your clients are, but then understanding that the city, the downtown Boston district is completely, it's high traffic, foot traffic, but it's not a one-size-fits-all foot traffic. You have different type of here, and after work, happy hour kind of vibe, you want to be more about the entertainment and restaurant, so I think that's more of understanding, yes, we are high foot traffic, but it's not a one-size-fits-all.
I love that way of thinking. I mean, as I mentioned in my earlier remarks, there's 100,000 people a day here. They're all doing different things, right? It's not everybody on the exact same path and here for the exact same reasons. And so if you're a business that is interested in appealing to tourists, we might find you a spot along the Freedom Trail. If you're looking at the office worker as your customer, there are spaces in the financial district. If you're looking at hotel guests or leisure travelers, or those more likely to make, in some ways it's probably an impulse buy, and a good one, your memory of Boston, a custom-made, handmade product from Boston. Let's put you where those people spend their time. And so it isn't just a sort of monolithic downtown. We refer to it as sort of that term, but it is it's much varied. I'd also say in terms of finding out where that foot traffic is, as your supporter in this effort, the Downtown Boston Alliance maintains a software license that actually tells us how many people are here each day and where and what type of customer profile that is. It's anonymized relative to the person, but if you came to us and said, I think my customer is from these zip codes typically, or that, they typically would go here before or after shopping my store. These are my typical competitors. We're able to actually put that into a software provider and help give you a sense of where you will most likely find those people within downtown, and then work with something like a Duty to take you to those spaces and understand them and see if they might be a fit for your business. Alicia, one of the other things that I've heard come up now in a couple of the remarks was programs like the space grants. One of the most popular things I think the city's probably done in a generation. We've had 11, I believe, small businesses launch their business in our service area here, almost exclusively because of the support that the city gave through the space grant program. I think at last total was something like $9 or $10 million in support through the federal ARPA dollars that went into supporting people get going. It's not the only program, though, that the city runs to offer some direct support to people, either financial or through technical assistance. So one of the most popular questions we get is like, there's been 3 rounds of the space grant. Will there be a 4th? Will there be anything like it? Are there other types of technical assistance opportunities that people could avail themselves of as they look at trying to navigate the journey that Salome navigated?
Yeah, so that is a great question, and I get it all the time. So there were 3 rounds of the space grant, so unfortunately there is not going to be another round. That was the creatively of how we can support our small businesses. And so one of the things that I would like to pinpoint was, part of what made the space grant what it is now is that the work that we did behind the scenes in preparing the businesses to get ready. So Salome is talking, she's a grant recipient, but what she hasn't said is the work that she did beforehand, before applying to the grant. And that was, she went to our workshops, she went to our trainings. She worked to really understand her business through our technical assistance program. She built out a great business plan that put her in position to then apply for this grant. And so what I will say for when we think about supporting our small businesses is also getting them ready to be able to respond. And so, May is Small Business Month, and we have this whole, and this is one of the events that is part of Small Business Month, but it's under this backdrop of exploring possibilities and creating opportunities. And what I think is really great about the panelists today and about downtown and Mike's team is that they are this is a group of people who wants to, one, explore possibilities and create opportunities. So when we're looking at businesses and there needs to be flexibility, there needs to be ability to talk, to engage, to work with you. And these are the people who do that. And so when you're thinking about starting a business downtown, that's the community of support you want to find, and that's kind of what our office helps to have you do.
That's so true. I can add to that. When even before the grant, all the workshops that we did actually helped me to track my story, to put all the together and to think exactly where I want to be, and that was a game changer because actually to the space grant, we had the money, but all the workshops that we did actually for me is a game changer because I'm still using them today, and I think that was a game changer for us.
Yeah, and I think that's where our office is really well positioned, is to help build the capacity of our small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And then also when there are opportunities, because not to say that there will never be another space grant opportunity, I don't think it will be in that same light, because we're definitely working with CDFIs and we're definitely working with banks across the city to figure out how we can support small businesses, but it's also about making sure you're ready and then you're able to take advantage.
We should follow up on that. So they say it takes a village to both raise a child and to start a small business. You guys help connect to some of the other folks in the village, right? Lawyers and architects and banks. Would you just speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a very robust technical assistance program, and one of the things that I find myself in, and our team finds ourselves in, is making sure that you can ask the questions that you don't feel comfortable asking, and we're creating a safe space where we're pairing you with subject matter experts so you can ask questions so you don't make mistakes, and so we can avoid a lot of, honestly, so we can avoid you losing money in starting out your business. And so we have providers that can help you with lease negotiations, where we offset the cost of that. We have providers that can help you if you're thinking about doing outdoor dining, it's outdoor dining season, we can offset the cost of helping you of the architectural cost of kind of fitting out what that patio could look like. So outdoor dining is not just kind of chairs and a table outside, but there's so many different other elements that you have to think about in terms of like fire code, egress, and all that kind of stuff. So there are a lot of costs that our office will help offset if you just reach out and we can kind of work with you to think about how to support your business in those capacities.
Now back to you on the landlord side. Maybe a simple question, but probably I could imagine a wide-ranging answer. What do you need to see to know that a small business owner, or would-be small business owner, or entrepreneur is ready? What are the signs? What are the signals? What is on the landlord side of things? Sometimes there's this sort of perception again of landlords being monolithic, and they all probably look at exactly the same thing and process information the same way. But everybody has a different risk profile. Everybody is in a different position in the way that they are imagining leasing their space to someone. You in our experience are one of the more creative thinkers in this space. And so what is it that you're looking for when you're meeting a small business owner for the first time about possibly working with you in one of your spaces?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think obviously the answer depends on the property, on even for us, each deal, I have different investors, different lenders, right? So I'm sort of the voice to other people sort of behind me asking questions.
Say more about that, though.
Yeah.
You know, that behind the curtain may be something people aren't familiar
Well,
with.
yeah, because again, we sort of grew up as like a small family-owned shop that we still own, you know, so we've owned for 30 years. So there's kind of like that small business mentality from us as a landlord. But again, like as we grow our business, we have more institutional investors, capital partners, banks, and like they have, you know, we need to show a profit, a return. A bank, oftentimes, if there is a bank involved, we'll actually have to review a lease. They actually may have to approve tenants in certain situations. So that, not saying all that to sort of scare people off, but it's not just the landlord in many ways is the voice of like sort of this whole thing. I think in general, obviously, to start off with the obvious, I think financials are important, right? If it's an existing business with a track record, I think just being able to cleanly explain, like, here's a profit and loss, here's the last 5, 3, 2 years. If it isn't an existing business, I think a really clean, just readable presentation of the business plan. Like it sounds simple, right? But a lot of times, if landlords are looking at multiple tenants, by the time they hopefully work with a broker and like that's been communicated, just simple business plan. You can't say enough about that. Just something that points back to the folks who are running the business, their personal track record if there's no business history, and just stating the obvious. I think between financials and like a defensible business plan, those are probably the top two just off the bat.
That's great. Salome, so again, we've got a bunch of entrepreneurs in the room. They're looking at areas like Downtown Crossing, but might be anxious about their own shift from an online business or businesses in one of our neighborhoods to a bustling commercial center like downtown. What's the reality then of finding your customer base? What's it been like for you over these last 6 months to find your customer, to grow your business, to seek new opportunities, including with your landlord? I think you were telling me a little bit about this the other day. And how did the city and the DDA help you weave into this local economy?
So, starting it can be a lonely journey, but again, arriving downtown for me was a game changer because before I was online and I was doing a lot of pop-up markets, but being downtown where people actually can come and experience the brand more often. In 6 months, I think the brand grew so much. Like we had like 3. There's one member in the team here. We had 3 together in 6 months. I would say that the support again. I wouldn't be here without the support. I would say if you are an entrepreneur and you're thinking about coming to downtown, if I knew the support that I would have, I would be less anxious, I will say, because I didn't know that. So that is definitely everyone that I met during my journey really helped me to be downtown. And then when we have downtown, you have your dream, you have your story, right? Because most of the time you have a vision. The vision is yours. The other people don't understand. You are there to make sure that they understand your vision so that they can better help you. And since we are out downtown, our business is very unique. And even because it's very unique, people connect to us because it's, we love what we are doing. We create beautiful products, something unique that people don't have in Boston. We're proud to be here. I think people can see, and I hope that the other entrepreneur are seeing what we are doing. And when I'm in downtown, and it's not easy every day, but I'm thinking that the other entrepreneur who are seeing me, I want to show up in a way that can give them also hope. Kind of like, she's doing it. And guys, I'm just learning English, like I'm learning to navigate all of this. And I'm doing this, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are like more talented than mine can also find, a place downtown. And so that's one. And something that maybe that I want to say is that when you are looking, make sure to understand where your customers are. I think it's a game changer. And don't be afraid to negotiate every single thing. Like every that you can save is important because it gives you kind of like a peace of mind to go for. So every dollar that you can save, don't be afraid to negotiate with your landlord like crazy, you know.
Your landlord's not going to be afraid.
Go for it.
I've been through it before.
Yeah, go for it, and make sure trust your vision. I think it's very important. If you trust your vision, the other people will see that, and that's helpful too. And yeah, we're happy to be done. So, and the people from Boston being very, I know that people sometimes I notice that people come like to support us. Like it's like I'm here to, I want to make a hat for my mom, for example, and they end up having one for them, and then they bring along a member of the family, and people like coming 2 times, 3 times. That's why you know that you're doing something right. So yeah.
And you had said to me that you imagined your customer was sort of you're the business, B2C, right? Business to the customer. But that the opportunity downtown also offered you is now corporate and workshops, and you're working with your hotel, your landlord, about actually doing things to take yourself out of your own space and into a space where you could have more people come together. Was that always part of your vision early on? You were looking for that, or has it sort of materialized over the course of your time downtown?
So I was doing workshops already, but we are doing a collaboration with the IAP. This is something that being downtown allowed me to see even bigger, because I used to do a little workshop, few people at my space. Now we're talking about 10 people, so we bring people from the IAP, they are there, and then we bring them to the workshop, some music, we are creating hat together, and then we can, for example, we're talking about making like 6 IAP in Boston to do that, and each IAP and others luxury hotel in Boston. So being downtown allowed me to see that, oh, there's a market here that I need to. So we're working on that, and yeah, this is also something that being downtown opened my eyes to. Yeah.
Well, I'll add one big part of that, which is, and I bet this is something Judy's saying too, which is the experience economy is probably, Alicia as well, right? This is the thing that I think has among the most, if not the most, energy within the retail sector right now. So if you're an experiential business, if you're something that produces, something that creates community, creates gathering, that isn't just, here's your coffee, which has its value. We've got plenty of that downtown too. But that experience economy, right, is something that's really been taking off in the post-pandemic environment.
Yeah. I want to speak to what both of you said along with, as your advocate, as your tenant rep broker, it is important that you as, our client, share your story. Many a times I will work with an individual, a small business owner, and they don't have like a pitch deck or, something that's going to give the story behind their business, because many a time as a broker, when I come to a landlord, they're going to ask you, okay, tell me about this client. You need to be able to advocate for them within the first 30 seconds, or it's like, another one, and it's, this kind of goes to the wayside. So I think it's important when you are able to talk about the impact. It's a community-driven business experience. You can come in, get a beautiful hat made, or, maybe it's a space where you can come and commune with other individuals in that community. So it's important to be able to put together this storyline. And I like to work with my clients before even reaching out to a landlord to actually have your story already put in place, because it makes it easier for me when I do reach out to Michael, the downtown people, and I say, hey, I have this group sending their landlord deck, and this is what we're looking to do, and it already gives a story, it already gives the color, it gives the vision, and they're also able to buy into it. And many a time, that's what helps the negotiation, because if you're talking about these high, rents, but then the landlord also knows that you're starting out, they may be a little more lenient into maybe TI dollars, which is like, tenant improvement dollars towards your business. Maybe they'll give you a little bit more of prevent up front so that you can kind of catch up and be able to really succeed within your business, because the landlord is just as invested in you succeeding as much as you needing to succeed. And so, I think that's what it's important when it comes to when you talk about experience, being able to captivate that into a story and put that instead of to a landlord. I don't know if I really answered your question.
No, you did. Let's put that last point in flashing lights though.
Yeah.
The landlord doesn't want you to fail.
Yeah.
Right? The landlord does not bring you into the space and hope you fail so they can go do something else with the space. It is, right now, a much bigger headache
Yeah.
to to have the thing come in and not succeed than to come in and fail.
Yeah, and just another, go ahead.
I can even add to it. When I signed my lease, I have renovation because I own a rental whole space. And so I negotiated with my landlord. They really want me there, so they give me free rent during the renovation. And the renovation, of course, was longer than expected. And I think I was more stressed than the people from my, and they were really telling me that, don't worry, and and that was a huge also help. That's from like negotiating the landlord. When you have a beautiful story, the landlord also want to be part of it. I totally
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I'm getting a little bit in the weeds, but obviously a lot of landlords have pure rent in mind. They're going to look at XYZ space, but oftentimes, sometimes we don't, especially in some more transitional either neighborhoods or buildings that have gone through a change, as many of these buildings have, which oftentimes are opportunities. And I bring that up because we've been in a situation where we're trying to target food and beverage at the restaurant or dry goods. And before just making up a number of what we think rents are and looking at comps, oftentimes we'll think about, let's sort of work backwards. When a tenant arrives, this happens fairly early on. Like I'd ask them for their sales projections, right? And that could be a moving target. But rent, in my mind, is always a percentage of sales, right? And you really think about not just rent, it's your total occupancy cost. So above, other than rent, whatever your business is, you're paying insurance, you're paying maybe common area expenses, whatever that is. And typically, most industries have just a general rule of what that percentage wants to be, right? So restaurants often try to be like 7 or 8%, getting into the 10% range might be on the high side, depending on the business. So again, I think doing all this homework up front and speaking with people in this room, other business owners, other brokers, folks in the DBA, I think will help just sort of give you that guidance early on, because you also don't want to go to a landlord right or wrong where just expectations are so far off. You're kind of, it's just not the best use of your time. And I think that obviously that's where a trusted broker will help ask those questions up front and guide you as well. So just kind of thinking about like just where all these things come together.
And thinking about your revenues, thinking about your product, one of the other things we see downtown, we sort of joke about it a little in the office, but it's true. If you are somewhere else in the world right now, if you're in the neighborhoods, if you're outside of Boston, and you're selling something, let's say it's a food product for $5 or $10, you might be able to charge $15 downtown because of who's here, because of the composition of the customer that's here, because of the expectations of what it costs to be downtown. So, you could go to, a broker, you could open with a landlord, you could go to someone else who's been on this journey or someone from the city who might connect you with the resources to understand that your product very much has a place downtown, but you might actually be in a position to charge differently for it to be able to afford that rent that feels higher here than it might feel somewhere else. So we're eager to get this panel in front of you for some questions. I want to do maybe one very quick lightning round of questions for them, maybe a word or two or a phrase that you would answer this with, and then we're going to be on to a Q&A from our audience. Alicia, business owner feels completely stuck and overwhelmed by permitting or licensing step they need to take at City Hall. What's the exact first door they should be knocking on?
Well, I think it depends. I know you said one word, but it depends on the business.
We're off the rails.
It depends on the business. I think it depends on the industry. One thing I will say is you need to ask questions and don't sign anything until you ask those questions. Make sure you're getting, and it might be multiple people, multiple times asking those questions, kind of getting the response in writing. Those are what I would say. So in terms of, if you're coming into a storefront, you want to make sure you're very friendly with 1010 Mass Ave.
Who's there? Who's the 1010 message?
ISD, so inspectional services, they have the building, they have health. Those are the people that you want to be in the room with, making sure you are, and they are very nice, making sure that you are kind of creating a relationship with them. And that's the big thing. Remember, if you're starting your business, this is going to be an ongoing relationship. You're going to have to renew your permits. It's not a one-time, I'm going there, that's it. You need to build your relationship with these folks, so if there is a situation, you can call and say, hey, this happened, where do I need to go? So remember that it's very much not transactional. When you're working with your business, you're not going to see this person one time, you're going to see them many times. And so building that relationship is very key and important, in asking questions.
Awesome. For What is the single biggest lease gotcha or hidden cost that trips up entrepreneurs?
I would have to say definitely the rent, you know. So many times I have, a business will go online and they'll go on LoopNet or, Craigslist and they'll find a space and they're like, oh yeah, I can afford that, it's $29 a square foot, but don't realize, hey, just because it's $29 a square foot, if you're doing a restaurant, you may need more money upfront for build-out costs, or you may need to bring your restrooms and entrance and exits up to code for 88 compliance, because if it's not up to 88 compliance, you cannot open for business. Yeah, so I would definitely say the rent is a big gotcha, because sometimes there's other underlying things, and you want to also make sure that you can actually carry your rent from to the build-out cost to renovating your space to actually opening up for a business and actually having free rent either after the doors are open or in between, because sometimes you need to factor in that construction for a restaurant business could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months or even longer. But if you're maybe like a quick, kind of boutique shop, it may take you 3 months or under. And so just really understanding, going to your site prior before signing anything, prior before executing a proposal that you really want to go through and walk through with contractors, architects, designers to ensure that the space can suit your business need. And so the big gotcha is rent. And sometimes it's more to that than just the rent. So, gotcha.
No, you sort of hit this before, but one creative lease structure or deal flexibility that you think entrepreneurs should explore with that.
Yeah, I think maybe the one that comes to mind is percentage rent, which depending on the industry may or may not make sense, but oftentimes in food and beverage, restaurant leases, you were able to pass forward a lower base rent to a tenant and sort of share in the upside, right? Meaning if they hit over a certain, let's say $1 million in sales, then there's like some sort of split where a landlord might get 7% of that, in the future. So it allows to sort of protect to the downside if the business isn't quite as successful and share in the upside. So percentage rent is one sort of shorthand way of talking about that, and then it gets more complicated.
And Salome, if you could go back to the week before you signed your lease and give yourself one piece of advice to save yourself stress, what would it have been?
Trust the process. I mean, I think it's so, it's really true to trust the process because when you sign the list, then it becomes real. Like, okay, this is real. I'm doing this. So trusting the process for me, I think is a very good advice. And then lastly, I will say be sure that you how do you say that? Be sure that you have all your papers. The city, the insurance, like all of that paper works. I think those big things. Be sure that you are aligned with all of it. I think that would be
Okay. Now we want to hear from you guys. So if there are questions, I think we'll have a traveling microphone. So I imagine there's some burning questions for this amazing panel. Let's see who's got questions. Yes.
Hi, my name is Racia Schrader. I appreciate you all for being here today. This is a godsend, every single one of you. I'm co-owner and CEO of Diaspora Experiences, and for the last 3 years, we've operated in Cambridge. And not because I got it like that, but because we actually got a really good deal on rent, which has gone away. The last 3 months, I spent a lot of time negotiating a month-to-month lease, and it's been beautiful. And we've just been outbid by a bogus spot, and my heart is broken. Recently, I applied to the Biz Unlock program. I think there's so many amazing things happening in the city of Boston. I'm from Dorchester, I live in Hyde Park, and I want to get back towards this way. We were not advanced to the next round because we're technically not operating in the city of Boston. And I'm curious in the future if technical programs will include people or businesses that have all the intent in the world to come to the city, but have to operate outside currently due to the cost.
Good question. Alicia.
Yeah, that is a good question because a lot of our funding and a lot of our renting out a space, but let's talk offline, because I think there's a way in which we can support you. And the Biz Unlock program is a very cool program that just came out, that our office has been working on it for a year. It's a capacity building program for business owners who are starting out, but it's to unlock their full potential. And so it's a pilot program, so we have intention to run it every year, maybe more than once a year. Maybe we can talk about partnering, but let's talk. So I think we might be able to find creative ways to try to support you.
Thank you.
To Alicia's point, I mean, sometimes LOIs are not necessarily binding, but they are a strong show of interest in a space that might be in Boston. So maybe taking that step would be enough to get over the hurdle.
Yeah, we basically want to show, we want to know that you're committed. And so I think there's a lot of businesses who say they want to, and then they'll not, like something will happen and it just won't happen. It won't move forward with them coming to Boston. And so we really want to make sure that you're vested and committed. And so,
Well, microphone moves a second. By the way, I hate using acronyms in rooms like so. LOI, letter of intent, right? So they're sort of the predecessor step to a lease. You could sign that with a landlord to show that you have a mutual interest in working toward a lease, but they tend to not be binding, so you still can work through some of the details. We have a question right over here.
Hi, my name is Mauricio. My company is Premium Peach. Is it too late to get your company as a vendor for the Bible Club for next month? Because I tried to fill out the application and at first it felt like it was going through, but then it had said closed. Anybody know anything about
What was that for?
the Bible, FIFA?
Oh, FIFA. Yeah.
I always pronounce it FIFA or FIFA, but I don't know.
So, I mean, I'll flip this to Alicia. I'll say there are a ton of different things going on with the World Cup right now relative to webinars about services, contracts that you could get directly with either FIFA or the local organizing committee or the city to do various things related to it. So there's probably a bunch of different deadlines for different things, but
yeah, so FIFA is I think their application is closed, but that's separate from what the city is doing. So the city is actually having neighborhood activations. And so if you want to share your information, we can certainly put you on that list. But I believe what FIFA, they had a workshop a couple of weeks ago.
Correct.
And they're looking for specific vendors now for things. So not large contracts from my understanding. They're looking for like photographers,
Who can I contact about it? Who can I contact about that?
Yeah, you can. We can just follow up after. One of my team members can.
Thank you.
Can follow up with you.
I think maybe right behind you there was another question. Right.
Hi, so my question touches on something Judy and Salome said, which is about construction costs, renovations. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because if you are an entrepreneur and you're looking for space, especially in downtown Boston, I can only imagine how much anxiety it might cause to walk into, you find the perfect space or something like that, only to find out that now you need to do some, whether it's minor renovations or a major renovation. And that's a whole other project, I feel, in and of itself. And for someone who knows nothing about construction or renovation or anything like that, what kind of resources or support is available to an entrepreneur who's trying to navigate, all right, I found this space, but now you're telling me I need to work with contractors, and I need to work with architects, and I need to, all these other people, and they know nothing about that world. So what kind of support, or, from the city or from DPA to kind of help in that realm?
I can talk to them preparing for that.
Yeah.
So generally whenever I bring on a client, I will ask a variety of different questions, understanding, are you prepared to do construction and what that would look like? Is that part of your budget? Because everything, to your point, in commercial real estate, when you're negotiating, everything's negotiable, every single thing. I mean, you can ask to keep the pencil piece if you want some, but literally everything is negotiable. And so you really want to ensure that, when you're going and doing your site tours and you have, selected your site and you want to go back with a GC, and I generally say you want to have at least 3 different, quotes just so you can compare them. And you want to ensure that you are understanding how much it's going to cost and negotiating with the landlord what are the TI dollars, which stands for tenant improvement allowance. how much will the landlord actually, typically landlords have a budget set aside that they will invest in the incoming tenant to put towards the functionality of the business. You have things that are landlord responsibility versus what will be tenant responsibility. You know, you have the HVAC. HVAC is, which stands for the basically the air conditioning units. That's a very pricey equipment, and so you want to ensure that, hey, okay, the landlord may cover it up to, maybe the tenant will cover up to like $2,000, and then the rest the landlord will cover the expense. So these are the kind of things that you want to continuously have throughout the entire process, understanding what will be the landlord responsibility versus the tenant responsibility, and negotiate everything, and ensure that the general contractor that you're working with also bringing in your architect. I know many times my clients that I've worked with, they've already had a vision of what their infrastructure of their space is supposed to look like, the requirements that they need to have within their space. And so that's important to have those things, and knowing that the city has these resources as well where they can provide these vendors to you is advantageous to you as a business owner. But those are the people, that's your team. You want to have your team all at one, your advisors, and being able to bring them in when you're going to other spaces. But construction costs, it can be heavy, and so you want to really be mindful of what do you need, what do you not need, what is the landlord responsibility versus your responsibility.
One additional answer is that I think, you know, we're a district with downtown Crossing, the financial district, where we have a lot of corporate landlords. And we've seen models, I'm sure Judy's seen this as well, where the landlord will manage the construction for you if you want. There are certain landlords that might prefer that. They know their systems, they have a building engineer. They might well prefer that. I will say maybe the worst deal that I've seen in my time at the DDA was a small business owner went to the landlord, and the landlord said, it'll be 5%, there's a 5% cost on you managing your own construction, and 10% cost if we do. And that 5% difference was relatively small on the project, and it was the worst 5% that small business ever saved. Because they got in over their head on a construction project they were not familiar with. They didn't know the systems. They didn't have an architect or an engineer or a contractor on speed dial. They could have maybe found that, you know, working with some of the folks up here, but they tried to do it themselves. They tried to save maybe the worst dollars they could have possibly saved, and it cost them. I think, you know, so it was something where there are times when, you know, you want to spend those extra dollars to get the right outcome and to limit your own liability. And so there are landlords that will manage those construction projects.
And I'll also say where you do want to spend the dollars, and I actually won't work with someone if they will not bring in an attorney. You need to have an attorney who will actually, if you're doing a lease, you need to ensure that an attorney is going to review the lease, because they're looking at 50+ pages of, you know, lease documents, who's going to be a guarantor, etc. You want to ensure that you have an attorney, because that's, once you sign that lease, that is when the meter starts.
Yeah, and I would just add, so we have contractors on, so we can help businesses connect them with an attorney to review their lease and go line by line. So, you know, usually, I hope are there any attorneys in the room? You know, it's kind of expensive to go line by line. It can be very expensive, and so we can cover that cost. And that's really to make sure you're not going in. You're going in with all of the knowledge possible to make the best decision for yourself. Not to say that you won't make the best decision for your business, but making sure you have all of the information in order to do that, and that's what we can help you with. I also would say, in terms of construction costs, build out, double the time frame, just double it, and it won't hurt you.
Yes.
It will not hurt you if you double it, but if you don't and you end up, you know, it takes you longer to build out than you anticipated, you're going to feel those costs immediately before you even. We have businesses who will go into business and they're already down $100,000 because they had unanticipated costs of, they thought they were going to start in March, they didn't start till September, and that's a big one. And you know, one other thing I would say is just thinking about when you're going into your business, do you really need to do this whole brand thing and build it out? And so when you go into inspectional services, there's a short form and there's a long form. Short means shorter, long means longer, and that also relates to time. And I think one of the questions that you said is talking with people allowed you to rethink some of the things that you were thinking about for your business. And I think that's key too. You might have a vision and it might come to fruition, but I would urge you to think about other ways in which you can reach your goal, in which you can reach your vision. It might not be the path that you're immediately thinking about. And so, yeah.
Great answer. Great question, great answers. Very solid.
I want just to add that when you have that vision, it's important to be able to adapt to the journey because some might come like one, a lot don't. But yeah, it's important to adapt and also something that you said. When I had the team with me, that was very helpful. I remember before I signed the list with IF, my attorney, he was really good, but because it's so long, it took a lot of time. And he was like, and I was like so like anxious. I'm like, oh, it's like Tommy's. He's like, chill, that. He's like, I need to make sure that everything is good there before we move on. And it was taking a lot of time, but he was like, we are not doing it simply they don't respond to all the questions that we need them to respond. And that was like, yeah, having someone, an attorney, was a game changer, yeah.
So that's our time. I think most of the panelists will be able to stick around and answer a couple questions if you have some individual questions after this. But please give it up for these amazing people working together. My thanks to you all for being here, our hosts at MCLE for welcoming us into their space today. Thanks to the City of Boston for supporting this Small Business Month event. For more information on the Downtown Boston Alliance, you can go to downtownboston.org or grab Diane Nichols in the room today who works for the DBA. But thank you to everyone for being here, and we look forward to answering your questions.